Hi everyone! Today I'm going to tell you about one of the worst environmental tragedies in the United States. Get comfortable. Let's talk about the Love Canal toxic neighborhood in the city of Niagara Falls. The origins of this tragedy date back to 1890, but the devastating consequences reach up to the present days. But let's take a step back and start from the beginning. In 1890, William T. Love, an ambitious railroad entrepreneur, prepared plans to construct a pre-planned urban community of parks and residences. He designed a perfect and functional city where all the houses and industries would be equipped with electricity, telephone, gas, running water, and sewage services. Obviously, at the time, such things were anything but taken for granted in American homes. I remind you that we are in 1890. This utopian project was named Model City. However, to run such a city, a large amount of electricity would have been necessary. The Niagara area was perfect for the purpose of a large canal that would have taken the water upstream of the falls through a path of about 11 kilometers up to the Lewiston Plateau. There would have been a hydrological jump with a corresponding power plant. Love had advertised these projects very well and aroused the interest of many sponsors. American and British investors saw the opportunity to get rich and were very interested in such an important and socially impacting project. Many companies had expressed interest in opening factories along the Love Canal, especially with the purpose of exploiting the electricity, as figured out by Love. But luck wasn't on Mr. Love's side. In 1893, all the industrial sectors of the United States were hit by a great economic depression, historically defined as Panic of 1893, which unluckily lasted till 1897. Despite the difficulties, in May 1894, the excavation works of the canal began. In this picture, you can see William T. Love surrounded by investors and politicians at the inauguration ceremony, symbolically lifting the first shovel of art. Unfortunately, the Panic of 1893 caused investors to end sponsorship of the project, and on top of that, also strong speculation occurred on land prices. They rose from $50 to $200, $500, even $1,000 per acre. Love's remaining investors forced him to abandon the project. Love went into debt and bankrupt. In 1896, William T. Love's great dream was interrupted. Only 1.6 kilometers of the canal was dug, about 20 meters wide and 3 to 12 meters deep, stretching northward from the Niagara River. The Niagara Power and Development Company, which was the official owner of the canal, tried to complete the excavation through a different team of investors, but nothing definitive has ever taken shape. Then, in 1906, environmental groups successfully lobbied Congress to pass a law, the Barton Act, designed to preserve Niagara Falls, prohibiting the removal of water from the Niagara River. With the project abandoned, the canal gradually filled with water. Local children swam there during summers and skated during the winters. According to a map of La Salle dating back to 1908, the canal was used by the Niagara County Irrigation and Water Supply Company as a reservoir to supply water to farmers in the area. In the 1920s, first critical issues occurred, when the city of Niagara Falls used the canal as a municipal landfill. But the real disaster started to happen in 1942. By the end of the 1940s, Hooker Chemical Company was searching for a place to dispose its large quantity of chemical waste. The Niagara Power and Development Company granted permission to Hooker during 1942 to dump wastes into the canal. The canal was drained and lined with thick clay. Into this site, Hooker began placing 210-liter dumps up to a depth of between 6 and 7 meters. In 1947, Hooker bought the canal and the 21-meter-wide banks on either side of the canal. It subsequently converted it into a 16-acre landfill. 65,000 square meters, roughly as wide as 9 football fields. The Hooker Company used the canal as a landfill until 1952. In total, a huge amount of almost 20,000 tons of toxic waste was discharged in the area, coming from the production of dyes, perfumes, solvents, and synthetic resins. This has generated at least 200 chemical compounds, including benzene, chloroform, toluene, dioxin, etc. To secure the landfill, the Hooker Company decided to cover it with earth with a layer of clay and ashes as a lid to prevent water infiltration. At the time of the damm's closure in 1952, Niagara Falls was experiencing prosperity, and the population had been expanding dramatically. With a growing population, the Niagara Falls City School District needed land to build new schools, and in March 1952, attempting to purchase the property from Hooker Chemical. Yeah, you got it right, exactly that of the landfill, exactly the Love Canal. Hooker agreed to sell its property to the school board, provided that a park would have been constructed and the school would not have been built in the Love Canal area. The board rejected the company's proposal that the deed required the land to be used for park purposes only, with the school itself to be built nearby. As a means of avoiding liability by relinquishing control of the site, Hooker deeded the site to the school board in 1953 for $1 with a liability limitation clause. The sale document signed on April 28, 1953 included a 17-line caveat purporting to release the company from all legal obligations should lawsuits occur during the future. Despite the disclaimer, the school board began construction of the 99th Street School in its originally intended location. In January 1954, the school's architect wrote to the Education Committee informing them that during excavation, workers discovered 2 dam sites filled with drums containing chemical wastes. The architect also noted it would be poor policy to build in that area, since it was not known what wastes were present in the ground and the concrete foundation might be damaged. The school board then relocated the school site to 20 meters farther north. In 1955, the school building was completed. And on the top of that, the school district sold the remaining land, resulting in homes being constructed by private developers. The sale came despite the warning of the Hooker Company. Due to chemical waste having been dumped in that area, the land was not suitable for construction where underground facilities would be necessary. They stated that the company couldn't prevent the board from selling the land or from doing anything they wanted to do with it, but it was their intent that this property be used for a school and for parking. During 1957, the city of Niagara Falls constructed sewers for a mixture of low-income and single-family residences to be built on lands adjacent to the landfill site. While building the gravel sewer beds, construction crews broke through the clay seal, breaching the canal walls. Specifically, the local government removed part of the protective clay cap to use as fill dirt for the nearby 93rd Street School, and punched holes in the solid clay walls to build water lines and the La Salle Expressway. This allowed the toxic wastes to escape when rainwater, no longer kept out by the partially removed clay cap, washed them through the gaps in the walls. Hence, the buried chemicals could migrate and seep from the canal. After the exceptionally wet winter and spring of 1962, the elevated expressway turned the breached canal into an overflowing pool. People reported having puddles of oil or colored liquid in yards or basements. By the 1970s, the Love Canal area was an established suburban community that appealed to commuters and families. In total, 800 private houses and 240 low-income apartments were constructed, mostly inhabited by young families with children or pregnant women. No one knew they were living on a toxic waste dump. In 1877, due to a harsh winter storm, the water table significantly rose. The excess water got into the groundwater and raised the elevation of contaminants. The chemicals seeped into the basements of the houses, forming noxious puddles, and made their way up through the courtyards, including that of the local school. At this point, the residents of the Love Canal began to worry and complain to the authorities about the presence of odors and strange substances in their properties and in public places. The city hired a consultant who was asked to perform a far-reaching study across the Love Canal area. The final verdict was worrying. Very high values of dangerous chemical compounds were found in the water and air of the entire analyzed area. However, the municipality only recommended installing fans in the basements to extract the stale air. What a crazy approach! In the same year, two reporters from the City Gazette published reports on chemical infiltrations and the consequent risks for the Love Canal inhabitants. For about a year, everything had been stalling. Until a reporter, Michael Brown, carrying out a door-to-door investigation, found numerous malformations in children born in the area. He advised the residents to organize themselves into a protest committee, which was initially led by Karen Schroeder, a resident of the 99th Street, a woman whose daughter had many, about a dozen, birth defects. By 1978, Love Canal had become a national media event. In May 1978, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, took air samples from the first ring of houses around the landfill and found that toxic fumes in the basements of houses could represent a serious health risk. The houses of the second ring were analyzed as well. The 55% of those displayed no traces of chemicals, while the rest showed small quantities. So they were considered safe. In June, blood samples were taken from residents for health testing, and in July, the New York Governor, Hugh Carey, granted the Emergency Commissioner Robert Wallen powers, allocating $500,000 to conduct a long-term health study for the Love Canal residents. Meanwhile, the EPA took other samples from homes and land. It was found that chemicals were starting to migrate. In fact, large quantities of chemical compounds were found several blocks away from the landfill. In practice, the problem was no longer confined to the houses built on the Love Canal, but had branched out to the adjacent blocks. On August 2, 1978, the landfill site was declared a national emergency. The school on 99th Street was closed, and Commissioner Wallen recommended evacuating all pregnant women and children under the age of 2 who resided in the first 2 rings of houses. On August 7th, New York Governor Hugh Carey announced that the state government would buy all homes within Rings 1 and 2. On the same day, the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, announced a state of emergency and asked for federal funds. However, by the end of August, a total of 239 families were evacuated and relocated, including Karen Schroeder's family. In October 1978, a fence was erected around the Love Canal area and a drainage system began to be installed to prevent chemical agents from escaping from the canal. At that time, residents of the outer areas knew that the toxic leachate had spread beyond the confines of the works. The indifference of the authorities towards them raised the anger of the citizens, who organized a protest committee whose leader was a young mother living in one of the areas outside the Love Canal, her name being Lois Gibbs. Gibbs began an intense period of activism for the residents of Love Canal, and her perseverance paid off. On May 21, 1979, President Carter declared a second national emergency, allocating funds to relocate 728 families. Only 76 families decided to stay in the area. The government made the decision to demolish 227 houses adjacent to the Love Canal. In 1982, the dioxin level present in the canal area was 100,000 times higher than the toxic levels endured. Due to the retroactivity of federal laws governing funding, the Occidental Chemical Corporation, the company that bought the Hooker Company, offered the residents a lump sum payment of $20 million, plus a $1 million medical trust fund. Between 1994 and 1995, the Occidental Chemical Corporation was sued and forced to pay $200 million to cover state expenses. Today, Love Canal is a controlled and gated area, with more than 150 monitoring wells running 24 hours per day. Some areas adjacent to the Love Canal are now considered suitable for humans. New houses have been built in the northern part, and some small work sites have been settled in the eastern area. Even today, some people complain of health problems, such as terminated pregnancies and babies with birth problems. Will this tragedy ever end?